In 60 seconds or less, I'm going to tell you my draft strategy to actually win fantasy football 2025. What do I mean by that? Meaning, do we wait on quarterback? Do we go running back early? Do we go wide receiver early? Do we wait on tight end? When do we take a defense? I'm going to explain it to you so that you have a massive advantage over the sheep in your league in this video. It's only going to take me 60 seconds once I get started with this strategy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be easy on this Sunday. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on that bell. We're getting NFL athletes on here. This is the only channel that's truth to sports. I'm giving you daily breaking news with Breaking Brad, the actual broadcaster who's famous for giving news. Breaking Brad on the show daily, Monday through Friday. If you love fantasy football, if you love being told the truth, if you love winning, if you love NFL players, subscribe, thumbs up here, and I'm telling you, you'll be light years ahead of the sheep, the only channel telling you the truth, the #1 fantasy football podcast with conviction and confidence right here. So subscribe, thumbs up, and drop a comment below. Where are you from? Let's learn about you. You guys are just as passionate as me. We're sharing the same passion. Let's get to know each other in the comments. Where are you from? What do you do? How long have you been playing fantasy football? Let's learn a little bit about yourselves as well, okay? I'm ready to dive into this strategy, and it's only going to take me 60 seconds to get into it. As I'm going through it, though, actually, when I'm done with it, I'm going to give you a couple names, a quarterback that I like earlier on, and I give you a couple sleepers here and there as well to kind of plug into the strategy. But if you want the full strategy, grab the 16-round draft session. I've linked it below. Sleepers, breakouts, optimal players draft each round. Use code WIN to save. It's going to save you 20%. Grab it below. You will be light years ahead of the sheep in your league, all right? So let's dive into the 60-second strategy. But again, stay to the end here because I'm going to give you some sleepers here to plug in. So I don't even know. I'm going to start my timer here because I did say 60 seconds. I kind of stick to my word. In about 10 seconds, I'll start. I'm going to run through it. I want you to listen. You got to listen again, maybe rewind, go through it. And again, all of this is laid out in 60 rounds, which all the players to grab in each round as well. All right, 60 seconds. Let's go. It's very simple. You want to go running back early. This is the most scarce position. After rounds 5 or 6, there's a major, significant hill drop of running backs that come off. So you want to secure running backs early. Now, you're saying, well, what about wide receivers? There's a ton of wide receivers, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on some of these rookie wide receivers, which I'm going to explain in a second after the 60 seconds. Some of them to grab. There is a ton of wide receiver depth and a lot of wide receiver ones you can get later. If you want to pepper in a wide receiver one in the first 4 rounds, that's fine. If you want to feel warm and fuzzy, that's cool. Running backs, wide receivers can wait. In regards to tight end, you can wait on tight end as well. You want to stack several rookies, and if you want to play safe, maybe grab a safer tight end a little bit later and then stack a couple rookies. Tight end is done. And then with quarterback, there's a ton of depth at quarterback, including a couple breakouts later. But if you want to anchor early, a guy like Josh Allen, you could do that. So anchor early Josh Allen if you want, running backs early, wide receivers and tight ends later, and wait on a defense. 60 seconds. That was it, okay? Now, let me add a little bit to that. Well, that's a lot, Joe. Hold on a second. I don't get it. When I explain 16 rounds, I give you all the optimal players. I give you a backup plan for a backup plan for a backup plan. So if you draft a quarterback early, I tell you who to back him up with in regards to what quarterback's going to break out later to back up that starting quarterback, making sure we don't have the same bye weeks, right? When I look at wide receiver, last year, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, I'm looking at wide receivers that are in a position to succeed, in a position where they could supersede the wide receiver ahead of them. So I'm not just saying, hey man, just draft any old wide receiver just because. You want to make sure that they're in a position to succeed where they're going to get volume and opportunity, okay? Same with tight end, same with every other position. Another thing you want to be aware of when we're talking strategy here, as I'm going through that, because again, I gave you the formula. Running backs early, you can wait on tight ends and wide receivers. You want to pepper in a quarterback early. If you want to pepper in one wide receiver in the first 4 rounds, that's fine too, right? There's a structure to it to optimize, right? You want to optimize your roster. So as you're going through this, you always want to be aiming high on the depth chart, always aiming high. Now, in the later rounds, you may be tempted to get a wide receiver that is essentially a name, right? Someone, a Bateman, a Michael Wilson, something like that, where you essentially, I know that name, I've heard that name, I want to draft that name, a Mike Williams per se, right? Where there's other players, example, Trey Harris, right? Drafted in the 2nd round by the Chargers, where I can get that guy. By the way, I'm just mixing my pre-workout here. I'm just getting ready to work out after this. You almost think I've had my pre-workout with the energy here, right? On this Sunday. Again, you want to get rookies essentially that are, and I think rookies are slept on. I think there's a ton of great rookies at both running back and wide receiver that are going to crack the top 5, top 10. They're going to actually crush it at each position. So you want to aim high in depth chart and get the guys that are going to potentially be the one over the guys that had years to wow you. I'm not wowed. I always make a joke, years to wow me, I'm not wowed. That's not a joke. That's a real saying, because if a player has not wowed you, it's very unlikely that they will. So it's imperative and crucial that you don't draft that player if they haven't wowed you, okay? So let's go over this again real quick. Why are we going running back early? And give me an example of running back I want early. The reason you go running back early, because there's a major fall off, okay? Abijah in round 1 is great. Jahmyr Gibbs, but understand he's contending with Montgomery. Genti, guys that are going to be the alpha, that are going to get 250, 300 attempts. Those are the ones you want earlier on. That's running back. Okay, so you want those running backs early. Now, I said that you want to pepper in a wide receiver early. You could do that round 3. A Marvin Harrison would be great, someone like that. If you want to get Josh Allen early, that's fine as well, because Josh Allen early is great because some of the wide receivers coming off in the earlier rounds are a waste of a pick. Even some of the players, guys like T. Higgins round 2. What a waste of a pick, right? There's a ton of guys. All this is laid out in 16 rounds, okay? So maybe get the guaranteed points with Josh Allen. Now understand, Josh Allen was on a decline last year in regards to passing the ball. He was about 80 to 90 attempts passing, lower than what he typically is, right? I think he finished 14th in the passing attempts. He's typically a top 5, top 10 passer. He's going to throw more. So who's going to benefit from that? Guys like Keon Coleman. So there's a later round sleeper that you can get. He's not going to be my only wide receiver. You're going to stack a bunch of wide receivers because you're going to fill those 2 wide receiver slots. Well, Joe, I have 3 wide receivers starting my league. That's fine. Mitigate your risk. Don't be as risky. Get a wide receiver early and then stack a bunch later, okay? So you want to always have a backup plan for a backup plan covering all your positions, but always the key here is to aim high on those depth charts, and don't be afraid to take a risk on a bunch of rookies, okay? So to recap here, drop any questions if you have. This is not making sense. If it's over your head, it's all laid out in 16-round draft solution, because everybody seems to draft off rankings. That's not how you're going to win your league. You're not going to win your league drafting how everybody else drafts. Yes, you could draft on ADP, but make sure you are getting the best players at that ADP and making sure you get the best players later that are going to win your leagues, because leagues aren't won in the early rounds. They're won in the mid to later rounds. That's where the Sam Laportas come up a couple years ago. That's where they're found. That's where Brian Thomas Jr.'s and Ladd McConkey's are found. That's where the talent is found, okay, is later. Now, I also try to get a top 10 defense as well. That's another thing I explain in the draft solution. I like to have a top 10 defense, and that's where I kind of go based on last year, and I kind of take a look at who's been drafted out of this NFL draft to make that defense better, and if at all, right? Because I want to plug in a defense, if your league starts defenses, that's going to perform every single week and not have to worry about streaming every week. So if I can plug in a top defense that's going to get me secure points every week, I'm going to do that, okay? That's why I like to try to get a top 10 defense. And by that point, when you're drafting defenses, most people don't know what they're doing in your league, and they're going to be drafting names like Mike Williams and all the crappy players that have had years to wow us. Wow, that's where you're capitalizing on getting a defense as well. So there's a methodical strategy. There's a method to the madness where you just don't want to go in and say, oh, I'm going 0 RB, I'm going 0 hero RB and all that. That's all cookie cutter stuff. You got to lay it out properly based on every single year. And I'm telling you, this year, there's a huge fall off of running backs. Okay, I know there's a lot of good rookie running backs that came in, but they're coming off early. Omarion Hampton's coming off round 3. Judkins is coming off round 4. Harvey's coming off round 4 to 5. Caleb Johnson's coming off round 5 to 6. All these guys are going to be gone. Then you've got a couple later rounds, Jaden Blue, but he's in a committee I'm not excited about. There's a couple other guys, Bichelle Tootin, stuff like that, but they're all drowning in committees, and the path to get to their RB1 spot isn't as clear as some of the guys in the first top 5 rounds. Does this make sense? All right, so that's my strategy. I already gave it to you, kind of the structure. Go back and listen again, but make sure you guys do grab the 16-round draft because it's going to answer all your questions. It's going to save you a ton of time. All right, grab it below. Use code WINTOSAVE. Listen, I hope you have an outstanding weekend and a Sunday. I got to go smash a workout. Get out there, get it. Start doing some research. Look at some players. I'm going to have some of them on the show. I'm getting another one this week. A breakout rookie. It's going to be exciting. Sleeper. But turn on the bell, subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Think outside the box. Don't do what everyone else is doing. When they zig, you zag. You go this way, right? but do it strategically by aiming high on the depth chart and looking for the talent, the upside talent, the talent that's going to take over on that particular team, in that particular position, the person with the upside. Those are the guys you want. You want upside players. You're aiming for wide receiver ones or potential wide receiver ones in the later rounds. That's what you're doing, right? Everyone told you Christian Kirk last year ahead of Brian Thomas. I'm like, scrap Kirk, give me Brian Thomas. Everyone's telling you Quentin Johnson, whoever on the Chargers. I'm like, scrap that. Ladd's going to be the one because there's nobody else there. Look at the depth chart. Who's in there? Who's coming up, okay? If this makes sense, smash it, tap it, subscribe. Have yourself an outstanding Sunday. I got to get this video out to you, and I'm going to keep the content rolling. Breaking Brad has a day off. He'll be back tomorrow, all right? Have yourself a great day. We'll talk soon. Hopefully this helps. I know it will. I'm out.